Welcome to this episode of the Athletics Office. I'm your host, Brandon Weaver, with my co-host, RC. And today we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Tosh Hayes, our boys' head golf coach.
Honored to be here. Honored to be here.
Absolutely. Just, so you were here even before I was here. How many years have you been at OCS now?
I can't believe it. It's year 14.
Wow.
It has flown by.
Wow.
It's unbelievable.
And talk about the success that your teams have had. How many, state championships, state runner-ups, individuals, all that.
So the boys have done really well. Four state championships and 5 runner-ups.
Wow.
So
that's awesome.
I say all the time, my job's giving me a front row seat to excellence, and that's I get the best seat in the house to watch the boys do their thing.
Had some incredible players come through here. Just talk about a few of those. That
Absolutely.
You've been able to
So right now, probably the one that's most people are aware of is Ryder Cowan. Ryder's at OU, playing some super golf. But before Ryder, there was Jackson Dow. Jackson and Ryder were supposed to be teammates when Ryder was going to be a freshman and Jackson was going to be a senior. They were supposed to be teammates here at OCS. That was COVID year.
Yeah.
And as great a teams as I've been able to watch over the last 14 years, that maybe was going to be the best team.
Yeah.
It really, and I know you can relate to that.
So add another state championship, right?
Well, but I mean, the college players and the college kids, the NCAA found ways to make them whole.
Yeah.
The high school players, not so much. On that team there, we had 2 seniors. Both would have easily been All-Staters, Boston Ben and Jackson Dow. And so we went on we called it the No All-State, No Problem Tour. We went up to where All-State was played at and made a little trip out of it, and we had a great time. But so what was cool is they still got to be teammates at OU.
Yeah.
And that was great. And Bryant Polehill, who he's actually transferred back here to UCO, which UCO has a great team. Bryant actually just had some surgery, some work done on his hand. But even going back even further, Zach Schaefer. Zach Schaefer was just recently inducted into the Edmond Junior Golf Hall of Fame. Zach was in a playoff for the individual state championship his junior year. He did not win that playoff. His senior year, he goes back in another playoff that went 6 holes, and he ultimately won the playoff. I was so thankful. I'm not sure I had the how do you overcome losing 2 playoffs back-to-back years at the state championship speech. But no, he to this day, 6-hole playoffs, one of the best. Awesome. It went back and forth. It was a great view, a great watch.
Yeah. So talk about your background and experience in playing and becoming a coach. And then obviously even just your coaching, even outside of OCS, you're heavily involved in coaching and training golf. So just talk about your background.
So I was blessed to actually be at OCS when the golf program started. I was in the 8th grade when they started the high school golf program. Coach Harris was the first coach. And I say this all the time, our first shots were actually hit not on the football field, but back in the day up on that hill, we hit golf balls onto the field. We didn't actually make divots on the football field, but we landed golf balls on the football field.
We could probably still do that today.
Well, it's pretty cool to be able to point to a program's very first starting point. Before our first tournament every year, we always take all the boys down there, and we talk about all the people that have come before them. And now it's their turn to leave their mark on the program. Yeah. And just how far the program has come from those first days of hitting shots on the football field. So I played here for 2 years, my freshman and sophomore year. We actually won state in 2A. My sophomore year, had a really, really good team. I did transfer after that. It didn't have anything to do. I loved OCS. OCS was awesome, but my golf coach at the time was a guy by the name of Mike McGraw, and he had got the coaching job at Edmond North when the school split up into 3 programs, and I wanted to play for Mike, and so I transferred to North. It was such a hard decision to leave OCS. And, at that time, OCS really wasn't a golf school. The program had only been in existence for 3 years. And so played a couple years at Edmond North, played college golf at UCO. I was a decent player. I was All-American on my freshman year, but that was about as good as it got. I was a decent player, but there was no way I was ever going to play the game for a living. But Mike McGraw had such a big influence on me. He was the junior golf director at Kicking Bird when I was growing up. Then he was actually the junior golf director at Coffee Creek for a little while, and he had such an influence on me. I knew real early on that I wanted to try to do stuff like Mike McGraw did it, and he went on to take he was the head coach at actually he was Mike Holder's assistant coach for several years. And then he took over for Mike Holder as the head golf coach at Oklahoma State when Mike Holder took the athletic director job. Had some rough years there, but he left there and he went to Alabama and was an assistant coach there. And then he's been at Baylor ever since. He actually just announced his retirement. His wife, Pam, has been having some health problems, and so he announced his retirement to take care of Pam. But huge influence on me. I still reach out to him weekly for advice, and he's always free with his advice, and always great to offer it. And I've had several assistant jobs growing up. I was an assistant at Kicking Bird golf course for years. Then again, I knew my passion was working with kids. Yeah. And the first tee of Metro Oklahoma City had started, and so I left Kicking Bird to go be the program director there. I was the program director at the first tee of Oklahoma City for probably 4 years, 3 or 4 years. I loved it. It was great, but it was ultimately too much time behind a desk. I wasn't getting to be out with the kids like I wanted to be. And so I left there, and I got to be real honest, it was kind of a leap of faith when I left there. I believed and knew God had things for me. I didn't know exactly what they were. And throughout all my career in life, I've always been very blessed to have better friends than I deserve, right? That have always reached out to me and have always assisted me and lifted me up. And at that time, there was a gentleman who was the director of golf at Coffee Creek Golf Club. His name was Scott Smelser. And he said, hey, come out and run our junior golf program out here. And did that and loved it. Was having a ball. Well, a lot of people know Coffee Creek got sold and closed down. And so when Coffee Creek closed, I left to go to River Oaks, which is the same ownership group. So I left to go to River Oaks. I was just teaching there. At that time, my dad had gotten pretty sick, and so I was spending a lot of time taking care of him. And it would have been in 2020 that Oak Tree, again, another good friend, Devin Davenport, was director of golf at Oak Tree, and said, would you be willing to come out here and be our director of junior instruction? And jumped at it. As a kid who grew up in Edmond, what Oak Tree kind of meant to the community, and as a golfer, in Edmond, I worked at Kicking Bird Golf Course when I was 11. Child labor laws were a little different back then, a little different. But so, being at Kicking Bird 11, 12, 13, and knowing what Oak Tree was and meant to all these years later to get to be there and to work there is it's a dream come true. It really is. It's a dream job for me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I know you mentioned Mike McGraw and how he influenced your coaching philosophy, but who else? Or elaborate a little bit more on Mike. Who's influenced your coaching philosophy the most?
So it's easily Mike. I mean, it's not even close. I'm not saying there's not other people who haven't, but Mike. The thing with Mike that was so special, at least in my opinion, was he had a way to make a game that's really hard. He had a way of speaking of it in simple terms, right? And golf's hard.
Yeah,
I mean, it is really
terrible
really hard.
at it.
Yeah, I mean,
I like doing it.
It's a tough game, right? Yeah. And even when it comes to the golf swing, understanding the golf swing, the way Mike could explain things were ways that for me, were just easier to understand.
Yeah.
And that's why his gift with working with kids was so special, right? He had a knack for being able to relate to young people, even college age kids, right? And so it's easily, hands down, Mike McGraw has had the biggest influence on me. I tell him all the time that when I was a kid, I knew he was teaching me the game of golf, but I had no idea he was teaching me a livelihood at the time. And that's it. It's exactly what he was teaching me all those years back then. I say things, whether it's at our high school team practice or at my work at Oak Tree, I'll say something and I'll be like, wow, that's almost a deja vu moment. I remember when Mike relayed something like that. to me. So
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, over the years, we've kind of talked about the influence that your parents have had on you. I'm sure in a lot of ways, but talk about the influence of growing up in their household and being under their leadership, and then what that has meant for your coaching.
Yeah, and didn't expect to get emotional at this, but maybe this one might get me. I'm gonna be honest. So, my mom and dad are amazing people. My dad was actually a great athlete. He was Player of the Year in Oklahoma in baseball in 1958. He was an unbelievable pitcher. He actually broke his arm in his last game of his senior year playing football. His whole senior year, he played outfield. The Milwaukee Braves actually sent him to Kansas for 2 years of college ball, hoping that his shoulder would heal up, and it never did. It never healed up the right way. As devastating as that was been, he more than once he would talk to me. He said, "But Tosh, if I would have gone in to professional baseball, probably wouldn't have met your mother, probably wouldn't have had you." And so, as I can't imagine, this in school. My dad had dyslexia. School was tough for him, and so he just knew what he was going to do. He's one of those guys that knew he was going to be a professional baseball player, and then all of a sudden, that's gone.
Yeah.
Doesn't have a college degree because they did 2 years, right? And now, what's he going to do? And my dad worked so hard his entire life. He was director of operations at a place called Copper Lake Retirement Center. It's not called Copper Lake anymore, but and just, up early, worked every day. Really taught me what a work ethic looks like. My dad was also my best friend. Had I gotten married before he passed away, he would have been my best man. He was an amazing man. He got diagnosed with leukemia in 2010 or 11, I believe. And I spent a lot of time helping take care of him. And I look at that, and that was bonus time with my dad that a lot of people don't get. And I feel it was an honor to get to do that. And we lost him in 2018. And promised him that we'd keep mom in the house that she had been in since 2000. We'd keep her there as long as possible. And so getting to be involved with her care now, and like I said, no question it gets difficult at times, but I truly consider it an honor to get to spend this bonus time with my parents that I know a lot of kids don't get.
Yeah.
But my mom was unbelievable. She was very involved early on with senior care, and when the state of Oklahoma started really looking into how do we care for our seniors, how do we take care of our elders. She was real involved with some of the first Bill of Rights that was written for senior caregivers, and had several jobs in that industry. And my mom is sometimes people would say, "Does your mom get her feelings a little bit hurt when you talk about your dad being your best friend?" I said, "No, because my relationship with my mom supersedes that, right? My relationship with my mom is beyond a friendship." My mom and me, we've been through a lot early on. When I was in college, it actually started in my senior year of high school. I started having problems with kidney stones. I passed kidney stones all the time, had to get some taken out surgically. And my mom and dad sacrificed so much for us to try to get a handle on these kidney stones. They got me in a research program out of the University in Texas that we went to Dallas monthly. They even got me into the Mayo Clinic. It was new at the time. It was the one in Scottsdale. It's not new now, but at the time it was new. Sacrificed so much in their care for me, and so it's the least I can do now to return that to them, because they did a ton for me.
Yeah.
Want to take a quick time out here to ask you to please leave a comment down below with any episode ideas or any feedback on any of our episodes. And then also you can email us at theathleticoffice@gmail.com. Let's get back to it.
Well, I've always been blown away just in how, in my time of knowing you, of how you've helped take care of your parents, how you've honored them. And I'm sure that comes from a place of they've taken care of you and really loved you well growing up. I even remember the story of them moving to close to Kicking Bird, so that you could go, and just to see the love that their kid has for golf, and say, we're going to do everything that we can to be able to foster that. So just kind of talk about that decision and how that impacted you.
Yeah, so anybody knows the area very well, right next to Kicking Bird Golf Course, there are some condos right there kind of beside it. I actually forget what the name of the condos are, but we lived in 3 different one of those from my age of, I think, probably 13 to when I turned 16. They rented because they knew that they didn't want that to be their forever home, right? But they wanted me to be able to get to and from the golf course as easy as possible. And I would guess when I turned 16, maybe within a month is when we moved into the house after that, when I could start driving. But yeah, just sacrifices like that, and sacrifices getting me to and from the tournaments that you have to, especially back then, that you had to play in if you were wanting to get recruited. And my parents weren't super wealthy at all, and they just made sacrifices, right, and worked hard. Yeah. I could never repay them for all they did for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, Tosh, I know you do other things, not just coach golf all day. It's not you show up at 3:00 at the golf course and you start going, but you do other things throughout the day. So take us through a normal day of the Tosh Hayes, whether you're in season and off season.
Yeah, I'm very blessed because I say that my days, they're all the same, but they're all different, right? I get a lot of the days will look like, start with today, right? So we'll do this podcast, and then I'm actually having lunch with Todd and Steve McCollum at Edmond Golf. We're going to talk about some potential for new looks for our golf bags in the upcoming year. Some of the boys have expressed interest in kind of changing the way our golf bags look, and so I'll meet with them and we'll talk about that. And then we'll have our team practice that roughly everybody gets to our home golf course roughly around 3:00, and we'll practice there. And then at Oak Tree, where I work, we've done this winter. It's the first time we've actually done this. We called it our Winter Trackman League, where a bunch of our junior golfers actually play golf courses on the simulator. And we'll have one of those rounds tonight. I'll get back to Oak Tree about 6:30. They'll play 9 holes on that until about 7:30 or 8. So it's a kind of a perfect example of how I'll be kind of doing both gigs today. As far as busiest time of the year, without question, it's summertime. Summer is when I'm busiest. Far as when it gets probably the most challenging in juggling both jobs, I would say from about April to mid-May. Is where it's definitely a challenge trying to make both work. Now, again, it goes back to where I'm very blessed. My director of golf at Oak Tree Country Club, a guy by the name of Kevin Wagner, who I've worked with for a long time. Kevin is amazing. I mean, I could not do the OCS coaching job if I did not have the support of Oak Tree. I couldn't do it. Yeah. Now, a lot of the kids that play for OCS are also Oak Tree members. That definitely doesn't hurt. It definitely helps. But without question, the coaching at OCS is possible because of the support and encouragement I get from the folks at Oak Tree. So I'm very blessed in that regard also.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you've been coaching for 14 years, involved with golf a lot of your life. What do you love most about coaching, and what keeps you in it?
So it's the kids, right? I love every year from the high school coaching side of it, getting to see what's this team's personality going to be, right? What is going to be the makeup of this team, right? And trying to challenge these kids to reach outside of their comfort zones to achieve their goals and achieve their dreams is, to me, a big part of this. Yeah. A lot of times players will set goals, but your work ethic's got to be in line with your goals, right? And especially now with the game of golf, technology's become a huge part of golf, right? Again, going back to the TrackMan, the launch monitors, all these things, but there's a lot more to playing great golf than just being able to swing a golf club. There's a lot of mental strength that's involved, a lot of attitude, and that to me is where, when I'm watching our high school boys, that I try to drive. Look, a lot of the players on my high school team, I'm not their swing coach. A lot of them work with other coaches, great coaches, right? And so to me, where I can supply a lot of help and a lot of advice is how are we approaching things that happen to us on the golf course? How are we going to deal with the adversity that we face on the golf course? And look, a lot of sports are similar to life, right? But I think golf is especially so, because things can be going along pretty well, in a blink of an eye, sideways, right? Yeah. And to me, that's how a player acts in that moment is what makes the biggest. It's easy to have a good attitude when things are going well. Yeah. It's easy to be thinking the right way when things are going well. The great players are the ones who have the ability to kind of, the minute things start going sideways, have the ability to kind of slow things down, take some deep breaths, and figure out, okay, now how am I going to work around this? And understand that that's just as important part of the process to playing great golf as learning how to hit a great golf shot, right? I've got to learn how to navigate these.
The reset.
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about past players. Jackson Dow. Jackson Dow had probably the greatest ability of any player that's played for me at OCS. Bad things happened to Jackson on the golf course just like everybody else. Jackson just had the ability to forget it sooner, right? And in golf, you have to have that short memory. Yeah. And to this day, he's been the very best at being able to forget something. When something bad happened on the golf course, he was able to reset faster than most players, and it was awesome to watch. I use him as an example a lot for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I know you went to school here at OCS. You coach here at OCS. Tell us what you love most about being here at OCS.
So the community, the coaches. Look, OCS was a good school when I was here as a student. It was a good school. It's an even better school now. And I think if you ask anybody my age who went here to OCS who is around the school now, I think they'd all tell you the same thing. It is the community as far as the kids taking pride in being an OCS student. It is awesome to see. And the coaching community also. When we get together for our coaches meetings, the support and the encouragement offered in that room. And look, I know a lot of these coaches, everybody has busy lives and busy schedules. But I know for me, that hour a month is super important. It is it's a way to be as a lay coach, since I'm not here at the school necessarily on a daily basis, right? Those meetings, those things, way to stay connected to the school, and the community is, without question to me, is just the staff, the kids. Can't say enough about it. Yeah. I get genuinely excited when I know I'm getting to go to the school for anything that day. Yeah. I don't ever know who I'm going to see, but I know it's going to be fun. It's going to be great. It's going to be whoever I'm going to see. It's going to make me feel better when I walk out. Yeah. And that's you're pretty blessed when you have a job that does that for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like how you talk about our head coaches meetings that we have. Like being at other schools, we never had head coaches meetings like that. We had one at the beginning of the year. We had one at the end of the year, and that was kind of it, you know. But being here, it is one of those places where you do get to actually pour into each other and bounce ideas off each other. Hey, what are you doing? We get to plan. We get to be – I think it's a very well-executed meeting where it's not like a lot of just like we're just here, you know.
Totally agree. And it's, we only have that little bit of time, right?
Yeah.
It's efficient. It, always have an agenda for us, and there's always usually time in those meetings where, again, we're limited on time, but there's always a little bit of, I want to let the coaches communicate with each other about something, right? And they're going to talk about whether it's something that they had to deal with that week, how they resolve it, and that's where I learned so much about how other coaches deal with certain things, right? Because I'm pretty sure I know what my strengths are, but I know what my weaknesses are. And those meetings are where I learned so much about the coaching side of it that those meetings really are a blessing. They really are.
Yeah. Well, it's always great to get everybody in one room, and I feel like our head coaches especially are so supportive of one another. A lot of them coach in each other's sport, right? So maybe the head coach of one sport, an assistant, it's always funny to me. Every year I sent out an intent to return form, like, hey, you want to come back, and what other roles you want to be considered for. And Tosh always answers, I think it's best for everybody involved if I stick to golf.
Very much so.
Probably don't want me coaching anything else.
Very much so. And look, there are parts when I watch other coaches, as a baseball coach, right? There are times when it is healthy and good for your team to see you get pretty fired up about something, right?
Yeah.
That you're going to bat for your team for something, right?
Yeah.
And have some of that emotion. And same thing for basketball, right? Sometimes it's a good thing, right? So much of coaching golf, again, at least in my opinion, is trying not to ride those emotions, right? That I got to be honest, I get a little jealous of that from some. I was like, boy, that looks like that'd be really, really fun.
Come try it out. Sit on our bench.
Get to do that. And at a golf tournament, so much of that day, I am trying to be so level for the boys, right? Because they're going to be dealing with a lot that when they see me, I want to be really under control, calm, pretty subdued.
Yeah.
Right. And
So you don't throw golf clubs or anything. That's like half the fun of it. Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I will openly admit I do get jealous of that. when I was like, boy, that really looks like fun. That really looks like fun.
Yeah. So talk about what has changed in your time in coaching. What have you seen out of players? What have you seen out of, just the way that you approach it as a coach? You talked about the technology piece. I'm sure you guys didn't have TrackMans, right, when you were growing up. So what has changed in coaching?
The technology absolutely is a big part. Even just scorekeeping, right? Some of them, you all know, technology is not necessarily always my strong suit. Again, it goes back to I know what my weaknesses are. So, it's been about 3 or 4 years ago when they started really toying with the idea of no longer using paper scorecards. Mm-hmm. That they were going to start having kids do the scorekeeping on their phone.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, I was hesitant to the idea.
Yeah.
But what ultimately won me over and what made me decide, okay, yeah, we need to do that in high school golf, I started talking to a lot of college coaches. Reached out to Mike McGraw, David Lynn at Oklahoma Christian, Derek Taylor at Southern Nazarene. They had already been doing that for 2, 3, 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. And my thing is, so much of high school golf is about preparing them for college golf that if we're really, truly trying to do that, they need to learn how to do that stuff if that's what they're going to do in college.
Yeah.
My thing is, in golf, sometimes our biggest distraction is our own score. Mm-hmm. And so I don't love the fact that after every hole when they get on that phone, they're getting to see, oh, that's my score, that's my score, that's my score. But ultimately, they need to learn how to not let it be a distraction because that's what they're going to do in college.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's ultimately what made me say, yeah, this is probably best. Yeah. And so the players keep getting better. The players, we learned so much about body movement and body efficiency for the golf swing that the players, look, I still think, like when I'm teaching, I want to do my best to help a player learn the game more than I want to teach them the game, right? Because I think there's a difference. I think it's important for kids to still learn the game of golf. I think golf sometimes gets over-taught. I really do. I think there is value in figuring some stuff out. There's value in the mistakes. There's value in the rough stretches. But there's no question with the technology and the information that we have now, those rough stretches can be smaller, right? Because we can kind of figure things out sooner and better. But just things like that, right? Things like that have changed over time. But for the most part, good. Now we're toying with the fall golf season.
Yeah.
Again, are there things with that are going to have to be worked out? Sure. In Oklahoma, fall golf is probably never going to be equal to spring golf just because of football and basketball, right? Your teams are never going to be at full strength because you have players that play multiple sports.
Yeah.
But there are other states that have done it successfully. Texas and football, there's no state that I know of that football is bigger than Texas, right? And they make some fall golf work. So they'll keep tweaking it and making it. There's a lot of advantage to fall golf. The weather's always better. Fall golf weather's always better. Courses are in better shape. The kids are usually playing better because they're coming off their summer where they've been playing and practicing all summer. So there are a lot of reasons why fall golf should work, should be tried. Again, it's just as a coach, when you're looking at your schedule, you look at that and say, okay, where a tournament's going to be at the strongest. And at least right now, it's still the spring. Just because teams are having players in other sports in the fall.
Well, I was really apprehensive whenever that was kind of brought up, and tennis has kind of done the same thing, because it seems like the more time has gone on, there's not these clearly defined seasons. Like, okay, here's all your fall season, here's all your winter, and here's all your spring. There's a lot more overlap now. There's a lot more of that. And I'm thankful to be at a place at OCS where coaches share athletes really well, communicate well with one another. They're not like, hey, well, I got to have these. There's not these, behind closed doors conversations like, hey, you need to give up this sport to be able to go play this. I just worry about what that looks like, across the state of Oklahoma in this case, or in the nation. It's just, I think it's putting a lot of pressure on kids now to do that. And it looks that way in every sport, right? I mean, even in basketball, a lot of them are going to go play AAU tournaments in the spring, when I also wish that they were competing in spring sports, right? And so there is a balance to strike to that, and it's just, I always just worry about what's more going to do to these kids instead of giving them this clearly defined seasons, because growing up, we all played a lot of sports, and I think that's become more and more difficult for kids nowadays. But there's also some good parts to that.
And I tell players who play golf, and again, I can only speak to the golf side of it, who play multiple sports, college coaches, and I know this for a fact, they love seeing, when they're looking at potential players, they love seeing that this kid is an all-around athlete, not just a golfer. College coaches love that. Now, high school coaches, I can tell you, when I look, I was like, boy, anytime he's playing this other sport, it's taken away from his golf, right? Because it's gotten so competitive, right? But
when golf is one of these sports, I think it's easier to play basketball and be a multi-sport athlete than it is to play golf and be a multi-sport athlete. The time and attention and everything that it takes to play golf, it's tough to take 2 or 3 months off to go play something else. And that's difficult. Just that's just how it is, right or wrong or indifferent.
I certainly couldn't. I couldn't have played 2 sports. I mean, I played baseball before golf, but no, I certainly couldn't have done it. Right? You're exactly right. What's that?
Did you pitch?
No, I actually played shortstop. Again, this is kind of one of those things where I don't know, and I hope not to cause any controversy here, but my dad's kind of ahead of us. My dad was a pitcher, but he, when you're talking, I was 8, 9, 10, 11, he didn't want me to pitch. He didn't want me to pitch till I got older. He was wanting to, keep the arm okay. Keep the arm okay. But no, I played shortstop. But by the way, that's a whole other story. When I switched over from baseball to golf, that was a little bit of a shock. But I will say this: my senior year at our all-state matches, the Day Oklahoman, I was blessed enough to be Player of the Year in golf in 1996. Well, since Dad had been Player of the Year in baseball in 1958, the Day Oklahoma did a nice story about that, right? And Dad was adamant in this article, and I still have the article to this day. He goes, I was a little shocked when Tosh first told me that he was switching to golf, but he goes, the article, and it was really neat. He said, I know my son made the right decision. And that was pretty cool to see that.
That's tough, because I told my kids, you cannot quit basketball under any circumstance. No, I'm just joking.
Well, Tosh, what advice would you give younger coaches that are just starting out, trying to get into coaching or thinking about getting into coaching? What advice would you give them?
So seek other coaches, right? Seek other coaches as far as, other coaches. If you're getting hired on at a new school, the wealth of knowledge from the coaches that are here, even like I said, I've learned so much from other coaches who don't have anything to do with coaching golf, but just learn how to manage kids, how to resolve problems, right? Expectations, being able to manage things that high school kids are going to deal with. High school kids have a lot going on besides the sport they're playing, right? The pressures to keep great. Look, OCS is a challenging school. OCS, it's a hard school, right? Some kids you learn really early, and some kids have to spend a lot more time doing their schoolwork to be able to maintain the grades necessary to be eligible to play golf, right? And that for any sport. And so I would encourage young coaches to ask questions, reach out to, don't be too proud to say you're not sure how this should work, right?
Yeah.
You're not. I know my first couple years at OCS, I know I made mistakes. Right? And but I credit other coaches. Mark Shuck was here at the time. Mark Shuck gave me a lot of advice in those first couple of years. The coach that was here before me, Cheryl Hitchcock, she met with me multiple times. Her son works in the office now, and I honestly didn't make that connection until quite a bit later. But she met with me multiple times. And she had great teams. She coached great teams, did an amazing job. When she handed the keys over, she was handing the keys over to a really, really good program. And the information that she gave me is so valuable, so valuable.
Yeah. What advice would you give parents?
So I thought a lot about this. Parents, especially with golf, again, I can only speak to the golf side of it. It can be real hard sometimes for a golfer parent to watch their kiddo make a mistake and not want to correct right then.
Yeah.
It is, you see it on the driving range at golf tournaments before a tournament, kids hitting golf balls, and a parent literally after every swing, right, saying, this, that. In my opinion, right, this is ultimately, and I always stress that, it's my opinion, I'd back off that a little bit. Look, there's a time for that advice, right? There is a time. I just think sometimes parents need to understand, again, I mentioned it earlier, there's value in the rough times. There's value in the mistakes. And there's value in when they're messing up, right? Just not to be so quick to want to jump in there and try to autocorrect, right? And the other thing to keep in mind, I said this earlier also, golf is hard. And a lot of times when parents are watching, and I've really worked hard, I don't play competitive golf anymore. And I made it a promise to myself that when I stopped playing competitive golf, that I would never forget how hard competitive golf is. Because sometimes when you're watching and you see a kid hit a shot, a lot of times, a parent will ask me, well, why did he do this? Why that? Sometimes it just was a bad swing, right? I promise you, nobody was trying harder than that kid in that moment to do what she thought was the best thing to do in that moment.
Yeah.
Golf's just hard.
Yeah.
And so just understand, be there. I think after the round is so crucial. How you communicate with them the first time you see them after a bad round, I think is even more important than how you communicate with them after a good round. Right? After a good round, they're fine. They're on cloud nine. You can't say anything that's going to bring them down.
Yeah.
But after a rough day, how you communicate in that moment, to me, is so important for a parent. That's when you need to remember you are a parent, not coach. The greatest players who have played the game, who also had kids who played golf, Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, they still had coaches for their kids because they understood their role was parent first. Sure, I'm going to give advice. Sure, I'm going to offer suggestions.
Yeah.
But that would be my biggest thing, is just don't be afraid to let them mess up. Don't think you got to jump in there with corrections right away. How you communicate with them, especially on rough days, so important.
Yeah. It makes me think, just last night, we our 8th grade basketball team played a game, and we were up the entire game until the last maybe minute and a half. The other team got ahead and then won. And of course, there's that part of you that wants to win, always wants to have success and all those things. But it's like, what a valuable opportunity for our kids who went through some adversity. It was kind of a crazy game. We made some turnovers we probably shouldn't have made, missed some free throws, missed some layups, some simple things that we can take care of. And it's like, if we just reframed sports specifically to be, it's going to be an opportunity for them to go through adversity and fail, and how that can be used to really help them out in life. Because what type of life would it be if all you did was have success all the time?
Right.
Then you'd be, you'd only rely on yourself. You'd be very prideful. You'd be very egotistical and things like that. You need to be humbled a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And you need to go through some of these difficult things. And so that's one of the things that we're hoping to do with this podcast is just shine a light on that of like, we can't go into this expecting success all the time.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Or we're really setting him up for a negative environment to be able to happen. So
yeah, and in golf, what you're talking about with that game, that kind of looks like a player, played 15, 16 holes really well. And again, a lot of times they start thinking about the potential score they're getting ready to shoot, right?
Yeah.
And once what happens is they get out of the frame of mind that they were in that allowed them to play that great golf the first 15 or 16 holes, because then they start thinking about the results instead of paying attention to the process, right? Yeah. And then, again, such a good lesson for them to learn that, hey, next time we just got to make sure we stay committed to our processes, our routines. The results take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's I love that. Again, that's another example of how the crossover in sports, they look different, but still the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What advice would you give players who are in golf or in athletics?
So for young players, right? And I've heard other folks that you all have interviewed kind of say this same thing. You can ask all the teams that have played for me. I think the one theme that they would all tell you that's kind of stayed true for the 14 years is I talk about playing with joy in your hearts. Yeah. We've even on some of our state rings on the inside, I've had that engraved, joy in our hearts. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, we're going to be better at things we enjoy. Ultimately. For the most part, we're going to be better at things we enjoy. If I would look at players in any sport, I don't care how good you are at it, right? If you're not enjoying it and you're not having fun with it, you need to probably look at it and say, hey, what needs to change about that, right? And to me, and it's learning how to love all aspects of it also. You can't just love the tournament day. You got to understand for that tournament success, you've got to love all the practice hours that go into being able to love the tournament day. Tournament days are fun, right? I use the example, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, all the free throws he makes under the spotlight, the exciting moments, crowd cheering. What you don't see are all the hours and hours in that gym alone by himself, going through that process to be able to shine in that moment, right? The other thing I would tell young players is, I mentioned it earlier, your goals have to be in line with your work ethic. The simplest way that I explain it to my guys, if you want to make the top 5 for the golf team, you at very least need to be one of the top 5 workers. It doesn't guarantee it. Right. Just like life doesn't guarantee things, right? That doesn't guarantee you a top 5 spot, but at the very least, you need to be one of the top 5 workers. You want to be the top player on the golf team, at the very least, you need to be the hardest worker. Yeah. Doesn't guarantee it, but at the very least, that's where you need to be with that. Yeah. So, I'm a big fan of setting goals. I think it's important. I'm all about, I give my players questionnaires with goals every year. And it's fun when they fill them out every year that they play. It's fun when they're seniors, when we're doing our exit meetings, to go back and look at the goals that they set when they were freshmen, right? Goals are great, but you got to have a work ethic that's in line with the goals that you're setting for yourself. And I just think that's important.
Well, I want to make sure that I say, before our time is up here, just, how much we appreciate you and, being the most veteran coach that we have. You talk about the joy that you bring. I think you show that not just on the golf course, but in our coaches' meetings. Yeah. I mean, you come to other events for coaches, things like that. And I think that really sets a tone for when we get new coaches, and maybe we even get successful coaches from other places, but to see kind of what this is about here and who we want to be about and things like that, I think you've really set the tone for that. I mean, even before I was an athletic director and I was a boys basketball coach here, I remember coming out of the gym one day and you were pulling up in the old excursion that we used to have, and you came up and introduced yourself to me and welcomed me and all that. And I'm thankful in my role as athletic director, I get to see so many of our coaches and get to know so many of our coaches at a deeper level than most of our coaches. And then, if there's ever anything that's done, you're going to send a thank you card or a text message or something after the fact, with all the technology help that Rebecca gives you and Eric gives you. Like, they're going to get a thank you after that. All right. And, I also want to, we're not sponsored, okay, by AOL, but thank you, America Online, for still being in business so this guy can have an email address still, okay? Yeah, he does.
Love the platform, AOL. Love the platform.
He's still with you. All right, he's still with you. Before we close up, talk about this year's team, kind of what you're looking forward to with this group, and maybe even going back to last year. I know you're really proud of the way that they've kind of fought through and finished last year, but what are you looking forward to with this year's team? Help our audience kind of get to know this year's team.
This year's team, they're defending state champions. Team actually looks a little different. We graduated some players, had a young man transfer. So this year's senior class, look, that's the great thing. God just keeps replenishing at OCS. Again, on the golf side, I hear you all talk about it for the other sports. Whenever I have some seniors, not only do I think about, I'm getting ready to lose some great seniors, but I also think about the great parents I'm getting ready to lose. I've been so blessed in the parents department of the OCS golf team, right? God just keeps replenishing. God just keeps sending more great people that are a blessing. Great golfers, yes, but great parents. Yeah. This year's senior class, Ty Netherland, Braden Haynes, Brendan Conway, just top-notch boys, right? Top-notch boys. Ty's already committed to play golf at Drake University. I think that's our fourth D1 commit in the last 5-6 years. Having watched their maturity, they really buy into that, how much their attitude matters on the golf course, right? How much, and by the way, it hasn't come easy to all of them, right? I won't mention any names, but I guarantee you, if one of them's watching this, he's like, yeah, that's me. But a conscious effort to try to improve it, and that's all I want to see. Look, I don't ever want these boys to be robots, right? Some people are going to have more emotion than others. I want them to be true to theirself, right? But I think they have all bought into that. Yeah, our attitude matters. How we approach it mentally matters, and they've all made strides to get tougher mentally, better in their attitude, and I can't wait to watch them compete this year. The team looks different, but they're going to do great. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, it's a blessing to get to be around the kids. It's a blessing to get to be around you all, to be around the other coaches. I said it earlier. When I come to OCS, I know it's going to be a good thing. Genuinely excited to come to work here.
Yeah. Well, Tosh, you got any final thoughts you want to share with the audience before we head out?
I wanted to say congratulations on the podcast. I know I'll kind of repeat this, but I've learned something from a guy who runs Solid Rock. I've learned something from a volleyball coach. I've learned something from track coaches, right? And so it's just another resource for coaches. Again, you were asking earlier for coaches to learn things right here. This is a resource. And congratulations on the success of it. I'm honored to get to be on it.
Well, Tosh, thank you for joining us today. Remember to like and subscribe down at the bottom. And if you have any questions or comments, please hit us up at theathleticsoffice@gmail.com. Not AOL, gmail.com. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.